What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video, and if you guys are new, welcome. Now today we are gonna be talking about a newly buffed exotic in the Burning Steppes for the Titan. In our last video for Titan, we covered the classic Doomfang Pauldrones, which gave us that nice new ability to buff our void weapons with just getting damage with void. So now we are moving to the solar side of this in the Burning Steppes for the solar, which gives us that improved weapon for solar damage, and we are harder to slow and freeze with stasis. That is kind of niche in maybe the Crucible or certain activities, but we are using this more for that weapon damage and just using it to annihilate everything with sunspots and our abilities. So starting us off, these exotics, Firewalker. Solar final blows periodically grant you escalating bonus to weapon damage. Solar grenades final blows grant the highest bonus, which is ×5. You are harder to freeze or slow in that stasis. When you break out, you take no damage and you create a burst of solar energy around yourself. Like I said, that part is a little bit more niche, but that is why they added the nice addition of that escalating weapon damage for our solar weapons. Now, to add to that on our mods, we're going to be using hands-on for that bonk hammer, giving us more super energy, with heavy ammo finder and harmonic siphon for our solar weapons to have that ability to create heavy as well as orbs of power. Grenade kickstarter on our arms as well as heavy-handed to create orbs of power from our bonk, and since the grenade gives us that ×5 stack on our boots for weapon damage, we're going to be using grenade kickstarter to get it back just a little bit faster. We're going to be using arc resistance and solar resistance. You can switch these out for whatever you want. Void, stasis, depending on the activity, and then charged up, so we're going to get more grenade energy when we throw that out. For me, I'm using solar scav since we're going to be using solar weapons heavily on this build because of the damage boost from our boots, with double absolution to just allow us to spam our abilities a little bit more heavily. Now on our class item, obviously double bomber like always with Reaper, so we're going to be able to get our grenade back faster to be able to proc our burning paths ×5 more often, and more of those orbs of power flowing with this harmonic siphon as well as heavy-handed. Now for weapons, for me, in my kinetic slot, I went with Riptide. Absolutely love this thing. You could go with Deliverance as well, long as it has chill clips, so you could do Overload as well as Unstoppable Champions with this, and just kind of plays into the irony of you being a little bit harder to freeze or slow with the boots, and you're slowing and freezing enemies. That's just a little thing that I like to do sometimes and just add a little onto my builds. Now for me, Sunshot right here, definitely the best option for this in my personal opinion. This thing is an ad clear maniac with the hand cannon buffs and that sunblast that it has. Solar explosions literally everywhere. You're creating scorched super easily. If you don't have Sunshot or the Callus mini tool, very good option. Basically anything in the solar category for an energy weapon. Now for me, I personally went with Apex Predator here with Reconstruction Bait and Switch for that juicy damage, so we can just continuously shoot rockets at that ×5 for the weapon boost because of our boots, and this also gets that nice ×5 weapon boost inside of our boots as well. Now when we move on to our abilities, going with Hammer of Soul on this bad boy with a throwing hammer and solar grenades, shield, and moving, doesn't matter, totally up to you, whatever you like to use. For me, definitely going with Roaring Flames so we can get those solar abilities and ignitions to stack up our damage for our grenade as well as our throwing hammer. So this is why we're using that heavy-handed as well as hands-on. Now we're using Soul Invictus as well, so our Hammer of Soul as well as defeating all those scorched targets helps to create us some sunspots, which standing in those sunspots apply damage to enemies, and it grants us restoration, which is super nice abilities for that healing and endgame activities, since we're going to be creating it very easily with our hammer, as well as our grenade, and both of our weapons in heavy and our energy. Now for our mods in our fragments, we are going Ember of Torches so we can keep ourselves radiant with Bonk Hammer, Ember of Empyrean so we can keep that restoration and a radiant applied even longer because of solar weapon or final blows, which we're using this very consistently since we basically never use it. And then this build is focused around that weapon damage, so we are getting weapon defeats very easily, with Ember of Searing creating even more of that fire sprites for us and granting us melee energy from our Scorch and weapon defeats because of Sunshot. And then Ember of Mercy, when we revive allies, you grant restoration. Also, picking up fire sprites grants us restoration, so another little way for us to keep alive in that end game, since we're going to be creating fire sprites very easily with this build, and then we can keep that restoration radiant up with Ember of Empyrean. Now on the tail side of this build, with our artifact right here, we got Monochromatic Meister and Elemental Munitions, just like basically every single build this season, because they're easily the best two mods to have on your artifact in that final column. Using a refreshing pickup so we can spam our abilities a little bit more when we are using our solar elemental orbs down here, or if we're just using picking up other people's. I'm pretty sure that this procs as well, so it is a nice way to spam our grenade on top of if we do lose our hammer. Now we can use, if you happen to be using a strand weapon, or if you're using a machine gun like Fixed Odds or Xenophage, because of that being solar and our damage from our boots, you could use something like Overload machine guns as well. And then like I said, strand weapon, if you're switching it up, using like a fusion rifle for your solar in your energy, using Rufus's round robin up here for a tangle is a perfect combo as well. But for me, this build definitely feels a lot better than it used to, since the burning steps really only had that unfreeze from stasis and solar pulse from it, which like I said is a very niche thing with Europa almost exclusively. There's some enemies here and there that have stasis abilities now, but it really doesn't happen too often. But that little extra boost to weapon damage is really what this build is all about, especially when you got something like that Apex Predator with bait and switch, just juicing some damage with Wolfpack rounds and the ×5 damage from the boots. It is a nice DPS build that you can have. Maybe not GM level, but I'm going to be testing it out since they just came out right after I made this build here next week. So hopefully be on the lookout for some of those streams. I'll post a comment below the video as well saying how it performed in that content, but definitely everything under GM level, this build will be able to just annihilate enemies with that solar damage, creating sunspots for you as well as your allies, getting that restoration to proc, and just being a solar menace. So definitely Titans, give this build a try, and hopefully y'all like this kind of build. Like I said, trying to do some fun ones that I have been playing with that aren't super meta that you see literally everybody else making. These are my personal favorites that I just like to play with and have some fun with, but they do work very well in most content, if not all content inside of Destiny. Just gotta test it out once GMs come out. So again, thank y'all for the support. Make sure to join that Discord, hit that subscribe and bell button so you don't miss out on any of these builds, updates on guides, stuff like that. So again, truly appreciate all you. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.